Rich, hey, AKA the old geezer, man. I heard people you trending. Eddie Hearn calling you an old geezer, man.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh, who cares about? He was sitting next to me in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, you were just.
And he was all nice, you know, and he was probably afraid that I'm going to call him out again, but I'm going to leave him alone. You know, he's digging his own grave. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Talk about his bankroll. Every interview he's done, he's talked about, I got wads of cash, I got 2 bags, I got 3 bags, these fighters need to come over and get the money. Do you think the money's actually there?
Well, he hasn't been able to do much with it yet. So I think if these people would have given that amount of cash to somebody else, that somebody else would have been able to do much smarter business than he does. But, you know, I'm done. Look with Eddie Hearn back and forth. I mean, let him be. I mean, you see what he's doing here, and it's really nothing impressive. So, yeah.
Okay, Richard, with that being said, of course, HBO bought out, leaving Canelo as a free agent. If he was able to bring Canelo to the zone, would that be the one move that could
No, it's impossible. Why would Canelo go to the zone? I mean, the zone is a platform without pay-per-view. That doesn't make sense. Canelo is the biggest pay-per-view franchise right now. He needs to be with somewhere where he can maximize his revenues. And if I would be advising Canelo, I would know exactly where to take him, where he can make the most money. Because you know, these fighters, in the end of the day, they have a limited time frame of making money, and as a promoter we have a responsibility to maximize it. And for Canelo, it's who can do the biggest pay-per-views for him, and I would know exactly who that is.
Well, you know them well, you know Canelo well, you helped him out for many years.
Canelo is my friend, you know, and I started with Canelo, and he's a great guy. So if he wants to know what I would do, you know, he would know where to find me.
Have you reached out to the Team Canelo yet in terms of starting negotiating? Because obviously he's a free agent.
I haven't. I think I don't know if he's a promotional free agent or not.
No, not a
so I don't want to
network free agent.
I don't want to be interfering with any promotional contract. But again, you know, if Oscar or Eric or Canelo want to sit down, I think I would be, you know, I would be able to offer them a very attractive.
He's a network free agent, not
a network free agent.
Now, if that were to happen, would the negotiations be with you and Al Haymon with Golden Boy? Is that how it works, or can he create? Because people want to know, can he have his own contract with Showtime, or does it have to be under the umbrella?
Well,
of Haymon?
I think there are many different ways.
Okay.
To structure something like that. And I think in the end of the day, Canelo is a big star, and I think he is holding a lot of cards. And I think if I would be him, and at this point in his career, I wouldn't necessarily want to go with somebody who would be starting to do their first pay-per-view. I think he should be with somebody who has a proven track record in the pay-per-view business, who knows how to distribute, market, and monetize pay-per-view events, and you can figure out yourself on who that would be.
Are you co-promoting Fury Wilder? Are you in on that?
No, I understand Lou DiBella is.
He's coming. He's coming west.
That's what I understand. Okay. But I'm, you know, I just came back from Saudi Arabia, so I'm going to look into that. I know that I'm going to have some of my guys on the card. You know, I mean, if everything goes well with Joe, hopefully Joe, and, you know, and others, so we'll see.
What's a successful number for Wilder Fury in terms of pay-per-view buys?
You know, both guys have never been on pay-per-view, but this is a heavyweight championship. It's the heavyweight championship of the world. So Fury and Wilder are two of the most promotable guys, two of the most charismatic guys, irrespective of weight classes. I think it's going to be a terrific fight. It's going to be a close fight. And I think the winner of that fight is clearly going to be the champion in the heavyweight division. And if Joshua later on next year wants to join the party, then great. And if not, you know, I think the winner of that fight is the linear heavyweight champion of the world. And do I think that this fight can do over 1 million homes? Yes, I do.
Really? Wow.
You know, it's heavyweights and heavyweight pay-per-view is a league of its own, and a heavyweight fight generates general market interest and not just interest among boxing fans. And I think this is a big opportunity for Fury and for Deontay to really own the space.
Floyd Mayweather's coming back. He says he's coming back in December. You and him have done millions and millions of buys together. What advice would you give him? He says he's going to go over in Japan to fight. How would you build his career back up to get the Manny Pacquiao?
I don't think Floyd needs to build up.
Not build up. I didn't mean wrong choice of words.
Floyd is the pay-per-view king. He was it then. He is it now, and he will continue to be it whenever he decides to come back. I mean, it's obviously more realistic that a comeback would be sometime in sometime early next year. I would assume. You know, I don't exactly know what month, and it depends. You know, when, where, and who. But I think he is going to be immediately reclaiming the pay-per-view throne because there's just nobody like him. People are anxious to see him again. And if it's going to be a rematch against Pacquiao, all these people who say, well, who needs to see that again? It's like, give me a break. I mean, they can say that, but then you know what? When it comes to the fight night, everybody is going to click the button, the buy button, and they're all going to buy it and they're all going to watch it, and it's going to be an absolute mega event again. That's just the way it is.
Do you have to on Wednesday when you have the Wilder Fury news conference at least make reference to who's going to be on the undercard at all? And is there going to be any?
No, I don't think that needs to be. I don't think that needs to happen at this point. I think this is such a big fight that the fight really stands on its own. But I'm sure there's going to be a very attractive undercard to go with it. But this is the fight. I mean, this is a mega fight, and I'm sure the tickets will fly out the door. Staples Center, I think, is the perfect venue for it. Staples Center always elevates a fight and a fighter. We've seen the last big heavyweight fight with Lennox Lewis and Klitschko.
Oh yeah.
And I think that really elevated Lennox Lewis and, for that matter, Klitschko as well. It was an amazing atmosphere at Staples Center that night. The stars are going to come out for a heavyweight fight, and you're going to see a lineup of stars like we haven't seen in a while at Staples Center. So it's going to be a big night for boxing, and it's going to be a big night for boxing worldwide, because this is the heavyweight championship of the world.
Any update on Mikey Garcia and the possibilities of him still fighting Spence this year or being on the Wilder Fury card?
No, it's not going to be on the Wilder. I mean, this is a pay-per-view on its own. I think, as I kept saying, and I think more and more people now are starting to realize that what I kept saying, that Mikey Garcia is pound for pound the best fighter in the world, and he's serious about fighting Spence, and I think that's going to be another fight which is going to have to wait until sometime in the first quarter of next year, because you can't go and do these big pay-per-views back to back.
Bob Arum is making waves now. He says he wants Terrence Crawford to come across the street and fight Terrence Crawford at 147, but most notable Mikey Garcia at 135. Speak to that unification, and how does negotiations work to actually bring that fight to fruition?
Well, as I said, I think I think fights can happen as long as it's a give and take. If all these fights will have to happen on one side of the street, it's not going to happen. But if it can be worked out that some of them are happening here and some of them are happening there, then it could happen. But for the time being, there's really, on the PBC side of things, there's so many great welterweight fights which can happen, that whether Terrence Crawford is part of it or not, it doesn't really matter. It's not like everywhere I go, everybody's telling me, oh, we need to see Spence against Crawford. I just don't have, and nobody frankly talks to me. I mean, talk about fans, nobody really talks to me about that. I mean, a group of reporters, yes, but I think people are just equally, if not more, intrigued, and I'm being asked all the time, when is Mikey Garcia going to fight Spence? People are really starting to buy into that fight. And I was watching recently an interview by the great Larry Merchant, who was saying that he's very, very intrigued by that fight, because it was Larry Merchant who actually came up with the idea of little Pacquiao fighting Big Oscar, and we all know what happened in that fight. And he said, they asked him on that interview, who would you pick in that fight, Spence or Garcia? And you know, in typical Larry Merchant fashion, he reflected very carefully on it, and after a little pause, he said, "Well, I wouldn't bet against Mikey Garcia." So that's a guy whose judgment I very much value, and so you know, I think there's more and more interest in that fight, and people are asking about the fight. And in the meantime, you know, Bob is doing a great job at ESPN. He can keep Crawford and Lomachenko busy over there.
Speaking of Larry Merchant, HBO, what do you think was the kryptonite in HBO closing their doors? What do you think was the kryptonite over there?
What was the like
the kryptonite, like
okay, yeah,
their weakness? Why did they close?
Well, I think at the beginning of the end was when they stopped doing business back in the day with Golden Boy and without Haymon. That was the beginning of the end, and that was frankly a dumb move. That was a move, an emotional move, and that wasn't a necessary move, because the fact is a lot of fighters, a lot of these stars we have today would still be over there if they wouldn't have done that. But that was a decision. I don't know who took the decision, but somebody did. But that was the beginning of the end. Let's face it. For ever since then, it started to go downhill.
And them actually bowing out, does that surprise you, or did you see?
No, I think it's just a logical evolution that you know, you can't be in the business if you don't have the stars, and they don't have the stars. I mean, when the you know, with flyweight, superfly. I mean, this is like, okay, that's nice, you know, but I mean, you see the people watching. I mean, nobody really cares, except a really hardcore group of boxing fans. And so I think it was sort of like, you know, one thing led to the other. They got smaller and smaller and smaller, and you know, you have to look at. I'm not going to say that.
Well, okay.
Like, look at the you know, they make a lot of mistakes.
And to their defense, maybe some fans would say, well, HBO, not in particular, I can't say what fights, but they were getting better ratings than Showtime. But at the same time, like you said, they didn't have the fighters to sustain the kind of momentum that they're used to having. So maybe even having better ratings than Showtime wasn't good enough, in the sense of not being able to put those cards consistently like Showtime.
Well, you know, I mean, it's not really true that they got better ratings. They got better ratings in comparison to the number of subscribers they have. I mean, they have substantially more subscribers than Showtime, and so yeah, so they got more people. But that's not really, you know, I mean, if you even it out, then Showtime's audience is there, and as a matter of fact, Showtime's audience has been growing while HBO's audience has been declining. And if you are a corporation, you are not going to really invest into a declining business, but in Showtime's case, in a growing business, you invest. And I think the big difference was as well that in HBO's case, once Ross Greenberg left, which is really another one of those moments where they started their decline, because they had Ross Greenberg and Kerry Davis leave, and that was sort of like they were replaced by people who were not really as passionate about the sport anymore, in particular at the highest level, on the management level. These were not boxing fans, these are entertainment fans, original content guys, original series guys. While on Showtime's side, you had a management team which loves boxing, which were boxing fans, particularly at the very highest level, with Leslie Moonves, who is a guy who went to fights, who was seen at all the big fights, who was instrumental, for example, as well, to get the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight done. So that's somebody with a deep passion for the sport, and that was missing on HBO's side.
So with him now being out of the picture with his situation, do you think that's going to have a ripple effect for Showtime? Or
no, I think it's going to motivate Showtime even more, because now they're really on the space when it comes to premium subscription TV. There's only one game in town, and that's Showtime. I think that's going to motivate them even more. And as you've seen a while ago, it was announced that PBC made a 3-year deal with Showtime. So Showtime has a commitment for a longer period of time to remain in the sport, and remain in the sport not just remain in the sport, but remain in the sport in a leadership position.
In regards of Leslie Moonves and his situation, he was a big advocate for the boxing program on Showtime for CBS. How does his situation?
Well, there are other people like within Showtime, like the head of Showtime overall, The chairman and CEO, David Nevins, is a big sports fan, big boxing fan as well. So there's other people which are passionate about the sport, and that helps. Because if they understand the sport, they are more likely to invest in the sport than if they don't. And the same is on the pay-per-view side. I mean, HBO pay-per-view is gone now, so there's no ifs and buts and nothing. The biggest player in pay-per-view is Showtime. Showtime pay-per-view. And they have a proven platform, they have a proven distribution model. So I think they're going to only get stronger now, because now their main competitor is gone. I mean, competition is good, and there's all the networks now stepping up, but Showtime is the leader of the space.
Is Al Haymon the most powerful man in boxing, would you say?
No question about it. He's been that for a while, and I can tell you he's going to continue to be that for a while. And again, we were talking about passion. Passion makes a difference in everything you do, whether in boxing or in your business, but Al Haymon is the most powerful guy because he is passionate about the sport. He is passionate about the sport. He loves the sport. He watches it non-stop. He's passionate about his fighters, and the fighters know that, the way he treats the fighters. So that is why Al Haymon is the most powerful man in boxing.
Let's go back earlier about your, you could offer Canelo a good deal. Do you think you could be that bridge to get that relationship between Haymon and Oscar De La Hoya again, and have them just be better if they work together, just overall, like maybe a Charlo Canelo fight or
for
something?
me, this is not about my feelings or about Oscar or Oscar's feelings about me. I think in the end of the day, you have to put these feelings aside, and you have to do what is right for the fighter. And if what is right for the fighter is to explore and talk and sit down with everyone, with every player out there, to see where can I really get the best deal, then that should happen for the benefit of the fighter. In this particular case, for the benefit of Canelo. And if because of personal feelings or so, you don't explore these options, then you really don't do a benefit to your fighter.
Appreciate the time, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
I got one question.
To have you here, yeah.
How did you and Al meet? Just out of curiosity.
Actually, we met a long time ago. I believe it was in Bakersfield, of all places.
Oh, wow.
He was he had a fighter on one of our cards, and we were sitting next to each other. We liked each other. We got along well, and then obviously and we stayed involved, But then in a really big way was when we did the De La Hoya Mayweather fight, and we negotiated that. That was sort of like the really where we took the relationship to a different level. And I always had the utmost respect because of his values, which is to empower the fighters and do better for the fighters, which is exactly what my values are as well. So we have a lot of common ground. And then after the Mayweather fight, which was obviously a big success, Floyd and me got along well, Al and me got along well, and that really led them to continuing to work together with me being involved in promoting all the Mayweather fights since 2007. And in the process, we became great friends.
Think Haymon goes back over the box? Could y'all go back and take over Showtime and HBO? Go back?
What do you mean?
I'm just saying, like, a few years down the line,
yes.
Add HBO as another network. Could you see that happening?
Well, I think you should never say never. I'm not so sure under the new ownership with AT&T.
You're right.
They're
buy their stock, by the way, it's real low right
which
now.
I have to say surprised me a little bit because one of the assets AT&T owns is DirecTV, and I know the DirecTV people very well. And for DirecTV, the involvement in pay-per-views is very significant. And for HBO, stepping out of the pay-per-view business, I was a bit surprised. I thought that maybe they're going to move their sports division, including the boxing business, to another platform which is owned by AT&T now, which is Turner.
Say it again?
Turner
Okay.
Sports.
Oh, Turner Sports, yeah.
They're already involved in basketball and in other sports, so I thought maybe they're going to move it over there, but that obviously didn't happen. So I think for the time being they're really out of boxing, but you never know. I mean, you cannot can never rule out somebody coming back, and I think it probably takes the right alignment of the stars where they can get involved in some big events and then build on that. I wouldn't rule it out.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time,
Thank you.
man. I appreciate you. Thank you.